Sorry about all that feedback. I forgot to turn off my Facebook sound. So you were getting a feedback from the Facebook sound. So that's what was going on. Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. The channel, the voice of the people. You have to listen to it. I don't think the squad listened to it. Okay. I really don't. I think that their performance yesterday was reprehensible. It was absolutely reprehensible. I'm going to share with you my reactions this morning after sleeping on it. Okay, I did a Twitter, what's normally called a tweet storm. Okay, it was just me, okay, on Tweet Storm. Or at least the part of it that was my tweet storm. Okay, it was just me. It was actually started by Teresa Sanders, who, as many of you may know, is one of us. Okay, and she started off the Twitter thread. Let me make sure that I'm doing this in the right way. I don't think I am. I just accessed it from the 9th thread. Yeah, she started. Or it was really Ilhan Omar who started. Sorry. Okay, what Ilhan did is she was jubilant because she was coming back to the Congress. She said, as a freshman, my colleagues told me as the first Somali refugee Muslim hijabi and only Africa born in Congress, I wouldn't succeed creating change in an institution with rules not created for us. In my blue hijab and prideful, I walk in, having now changed Congress forever. And she shows a picture of a hallway of the Congress, okay, and the hijab there. And she walking in, really very endearing, the blue hijab. Not to take things lying down, not to put too much of a damper on the celebration, but to call attention to the truth. Teresa Sanders said, where were you when 5 centrists voted to replace Pelosi? #fraud squad. We did not give our representation to you all to have it sold to the corporate elite. You need strategy, big lost opportunity. Constitutional scholar at Joe Firestone, PhD. Call, you all blew it. Now, I agree with every part of that, except for the fact that I would not call myself a constitutional scholar. I have taken some con law with a very fine lawyer at Cornell long ago. And I have done some studies of the Constitution since that time. But I am far from a constitutional scholar. I have some friends who are constitutional scholars, but I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm a political science PhD who knows something about the Constitution and the way the Congress operates. I won't even call myself an expert on the Congress, okay, and how it operates. I would call myself as someone who's conversant with it. Anyway, she tagged me, so I saw her tweet, and I was getting ready to say something anyway. So I put together a 9-tweet storm. 1, not going to endorse the hashtag fraud squad tag. Well, why not? Because I don't think the squad and the squad members really are frauds. I know we're very angry now, and I believe that they made a grievous error. I certainly do. But it's too strong, too early in the game to call them frauds. Since the original 4 came into Congress, they have certainly stood up for us on many occasions verbally and with their votes and with their co-sponsorship, of bills, and with all the publicity they have given to key issues by being inside of the Congress and taking verbal stands on various things. They have been enormously helpful, in that particular respect. They're also people who work hard for their constituents, who obviously care about them, who do not take any donor money, but only our money. And who I think have, generally speaking, been doing whatever they can to try to represent us and try to fill our needs. So I am not at all ready to give up on them. Certainly not the first 4. And Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush certainly look like they're cut from the same cloth as the first 4. Now, I'm not familiar enough with Mondaire Jones, not familiar enough with Newman, but to be able to say that the last 2 are really cut from the same cloth as the first 6. But I think the first 6 are sincere people trying to turn around our democracy, to turn it back from an oligarchy into something more like a democracy. So I am not at all giving up on them. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not giving up on the Democratic Party. I'm certainly very friendly to the Movement for a People's Party and to many of the actions that are being taken by the People's Party. And I certainly think the Democratic Party needs a party on the left of it to help it to straighten itself up. So I'm all for the People's Party. I'm all for the Squad. I'm all for other progressives inside of the Democratic Party too. I haven't given up. Anyway, to finish my first tweet, but I do agree that those of us inside and outside your district, this is talking to Ilhan, okay, and to Rashida, okay, and to Teresa, outside your district did not support you and your mates for you to support the oligarchies outside and inside in Congress, and with them, their donors. We supported you above all to bring democracy. And I tagged AOC and Presley as well, so that all four of the original squad would be tagged in this tweet storm. Then in tweet number 2, I said, but look at what you did. You bargained with Pelosi in secret, violating transparency. You gave us no voice in what you settled for or in your decisions to vote for her, violating participant democracy. In other words, violating another key norm of real democracy. And you gave her 8 votes to win, when even 3 would have blocked her. And I tagged Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush too, because their first votes in Congress were critical to getting Pelosi close. Now, I should make very clear here, I think I do somewhere in this particular tweet storm. Suffice it now, for now, to say that 3 would have blocked her. I will explain as I go along. Tweet 3. Also, you rewarded her failures. She lost 11 seats. She failed to give you the committee spots you needed to represent us well. She failed to consult you in CARES Act bargaining and gave away her leverage for lasting COVID-19 relief. And remember, the $4.6 trillion money cannon that she gave to McConnell was all the big corporations needed. They didn't need to have their representatives, like McConnell, come to the table again. That's why he was able to deny relief proposals for so long, because she gave away the leverage when she gave away the money cannon in that bill that was passed on March the 23rd of 2020. She gave away her leverage without consulting the progressive wing of the party, without consulting any of the members of the squad, even though they had voted for her. She failed to consult any of them. It was an up or down vote for them. Congress wasn't in session. Only she and her people were there. She took the framework that Mitch McConnell gave them for the CARES Act and then wrote in various other things based on what her own staff and lobbyists thought was acceptable or wanted to see. Did she ever talk to AOC about it? There's no evidence of that. She ever talk to Ilhan about it? No evidence of that. Did she ever talk to Rashida about it, or Ayanna? No evidence of that. They didn't have any input into that. At just about the same time, Rashida was writing the Automatic Boost to Communities Act. $2,000 a month for every adult individual, $1,000 a month for every child for as long as the crisis was to last, and $1,000 a month for every individual and $500 a month for every child for a year after that to give the economy some time to recover. Nothing like that got into the CARES Act because she, Pelosi, wasn't talking to the Squad or to the progressives. 4, she imposed pay-go on you, again, I'm talking to them, in 2019 and 2020. She refused to bring hashtag MFA, the ABC Act, and the Paycheck Recovery Act to the floor. The Paycheck Recovery Act was the Jayapal Act, which would have replaced the payroll checks that people who lost their jobs were losing, and would have kept them attached to their jobs and the corporations they worked for. That's what the Paycheck Recovery Act was about. It was what they were doing over in Europe, trying to do the same thing here. She refused to bring any of those acts to the floor, Pelosi did. She blocked the Green New Deal initiatives. She delayed, then she botched the impeachment case against Trump. We all know how she did that. She then played politics with relief for the rest of the year. And then I put a tag on to Tamandar Jones so he could have the thread too. Then in number 5, she also blocked your own candidates for Congress in Texas and in Massachusetts. Now, I didn't go into detail here, but in Texas, Jessica Cisneros was blocked in her primary by Nancy Pelosi and the establishment Democrats who backed Henry Cuellar, absolutely a Trump Democrat, who voted something like 75% of the time with Trump, and the establishment Dems backed him. They backed him. They gave him enough money to defeat Jessica Cisneros, a great candidate in Texas, a true Democrat, and a likely Squad member. And in Massachusetts, there was, of course, the challenge to Richie Neal, the big barrier to Medicare for all in the House, who's taken more industry money, I believe, than anyone else in the Congress. And he's sitting on Ways and Means, blocking Medicare for all for his donors. And he had a great challenge from the former mayor of Holyoke, Alex Morse. And the establishment played dirty pool and helped Neal to defeat Alex Morse in that particular primary. That's what they did. The Squad was in a position to punish those actions going on. And then you rewarded this terrible record of failure by giving her the win when just 3 of you could have blocked her, and then 8 of you traded with successor candidates for a range of benefits in return for your support. And I said, for shame. And then I outlined the benefits. I pointed out a new speaker would be more open to Squad policy positions, that a new speaker would be more open to CPC positions, somewhat more to the right than Squad positions, but still better than the crap we've been getting, right? Also, a new candidate for speaker could be negotiated with for far more than Pelosi would give, such as floor votes for multiple priorities, including Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and others. Free college, student debt elimination, paid family leave, public housing. You just go down the list. Floor votes for most part of Bernie Sanders' agenda could have been bargained for with the new candidates. They could have gotten rule changes, such as the elimination of pay-go. Now, I know the squad got the elimination of pay-go with respect to the Green New Deal, with respect to climate change, or with respect to COVID relief, both the economic side of COVID relief and the healthcare side, of COVID relief. That was very good. That was very good. But we need the total elimination of pay-go. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Because what good is the elimination of pay-go in particular areas if you can't get a bill to the floor anyway? How do you get bills to the floor? First, you get agreements from a would-be speaker up front that you're going to be allowed to get certain bills to the floor. Then you get good committee positions to help to seal the bargain. And they could have negotiated for good committee positions for the squad, too. They could have gotten decent offices and perks which are given to valued congresspeople that they don't have now. And they could have gotten all the benefits that I had previously mentioned that were available if they had a Medicare for floor vote alone. So all those things would have been included. Here is the 6th tweet. I said, "You failed both of us and yourselves. You acted according to the norms of the House, bargaining like others in the institution, acting like oligarchs yourselves. The only difference being that you were oligarchs on the rise. You didn't act like the leaders of a movement. But yesterday, one of you tweeted a nice photo and then said, 'Let's do this.' Who tweeted the nice photo with all the squad members in it? Of course, AOC tweeted it. And they were all happy. First day in Congress, wonderful celebration the first day. And then asking us to let's do this. And then tweet number 7. Let's means both you and us. It is not me, us, quote unquote. Well, there is something both Bernie and yourselves don't understand. If it's going to be us, and you are going to be leaders, you're going to be leaders of us, then you cannot make decisions while violating transparency and participation norms of bottom-up democracy. You can't do that. Number 8, difficult as it may be over short time frames. If you are going to lead the not me, us movement, quote unquote, and after all, they and also Nina Turner are the heir apparents to that movement. Then you have to involve us in decision making. If you're going to lead the not me, us movement, then you have to involve us in decision making, especially when it comes to having a part in deciding who will be Speaker of the House, perhaps the second most powerful person in the United States. Think of it. Probably the most important decision that the squad was going to have to make for the next 2 years, the first decision of all, even before the new Congress was sworn in, was the election of the Speaker of the House. And the squad had to decide whether they were going to vote for the re-election of a failed speaker, someone who had failed on so many dimensions, as I outlined in the previous tweet, or whether they were going to try to bring a new person to power. And what did they decide without any consultation with their movement, without listening to us, without even trying to get a by your leave, without appealing to democracy at all in the movement? What they did was to take this most important decision and involvement in this most important decision, to take that away from us and to take it on themselves. How is that different from the way Bernie acted when he dropped out of the presidential campaign without consulting anybody in his movement, without consulting all the people who had worked for him, all the people who had contributed to him, all the people who had spoke in his defense and in support of his agenda for 2 election cycles? And he thinks that decision to withdraw is his alone. I'm afraid the squad has learned from him, because they haven't consulted their base either in making this most important decision. And by the way, how is this different from the way Nancy Pelosi acted when she constructed that bad bargain with the Republicans to pass the CARES Act? She didn't feel she had any obligation even to consult the duly elected members of the House of Representatives in her party in making that particular decision. She had sent them all home because of the dangers of COVID. The House was not in session. She took the responsibility on herself and her staff, and they did what they thought was right. They didn't consult with the progressives. They didn't consult with the squad. I don't even think that they consulted with the righty Democrats, who are often called in the media the centrist Democrats. I don't even think they consulted with other establishment Democrats, except for the ones who are in her leadership team. But they certainly didn't consult with anybody we elected. Certainly didn't consult with the squad. So how is Nancy Pelosi's action in this? And it was reprehensible, very reprehensible. How is it different in kind from the squad's action in taking this decision to vote for Speaker totally on themselves, saying virtually, I was just elected or re-elected to Congress. It is my privilege to make this decision by myself. It is my privilege not to consult with my base. I'll make the decision, and they'll have to be happy with it or not, as they please, but I'm going to make this decision. Well, my squad friends, that is is the thinking of oligarchs. That is not the thinking of bottom-up Democrats. So the 9th tweet. So I say again, in not voting to replace Pelosi, hashtag replace Pelosi Jan 30. Okay, that was one of the hashtags that we used for our campaign. Okay, and to then negotiate with other speaker candidates to then force the vote, plus get more changes, you have discredited and dishonored yourselves. You have failed the millions who have put their trust in you. For shame. For shame. For shame. And to bring in another perspective here, I think, okay, it might be important if I can do this well. I usually don't do this, but what I'm going to do for you now and hope I can limit the feedback is to play a short clip from Twitter that was posted by Ryan Knight, actually. Just a little clip from the Katie Halper show, where a great statement is made by Marianne Williamson. So let's see it, and then you can tell me if it went through well.
So you were here to ask me what I thought about today, right? Mm-hmm. And my answer is that I think today was a terrible day. It was a really terrible day. So you were here to ask me what I...
Okay, sorry. I already botched this up a bit, but I will recoup. I will share the screen. And hopefully this will go better.
I thought about today, right? Mm-hmm. And my answer is that I think today was a terrible day. It was a really terrible day, like historically terrible day. I think that the next 2 years in the United States are going to be very significant in American history. And what happened today was such a cave. And even the people that we have been hoping they're going to go in there, how many times a day do we read their tweets? They're going there to fight for us. And we see their tweets of their new office door and they're going to fight for us. And today was a fold. It wasn't a fight. I don't know what day does the fight begin? Mm-hmm. How many days are you there before you start this fight? Because the first fight is with the corporatist Democratic establishment. And this is nothing personal about Nancy Pelosi. She's the first woman speaker. I have great respect for much she's done in the past. But what happened today was grievous. And I don't think that the Democratic Party has 2 years to prove to the American people that they will present a genuine alternative to the Trump-type forces. They have, I think, 100 days. And what was voted for today is same old, same old. The same old that lost us seats in the House. No company would thrive in this country that rewarded failed leadership the way the Democratic Party does. So I feel politically homeless today. I think a lot of people do. Mm-hmm.
And so there you are. What Marianne thinks is that the Biden administration will have 100 days to make an impression on the American people, that it is different, that it is for them. They will have only that amount of time to make that particular impression. So I'm not sure the 100 days is completely right. I'm not going to put a number on it. But I'm going to say we better see from the beginning that this administration is serious about relieving the sufferings of the American people, that it is fighting for us and not the donors and not the oligarchy. Things don't look promising based on the appointments the Biden administration has made to the cabinet. They look like quite a lot like the Obama appointments. And the Biden experience is conditioned by the Obama administration experience. And the Obama administration people thought they did pretty good, that their administration was a pretty good administration. Never mind what the American people thought about it. It's obvious what the American people thought about it because Trump won. We did not think that administration was so hot, not from our point of view. It increased the seriousness, the severity of the inequality crisis. It failed to do anything about the climate emergency. It failed to pass Medicare for all, leaving in the end 37,000 fatalities due to lack of health insurance on the table. That was a reduction from the 45,000 or so that was supposed to be fatalities in 2009. So there was something of an improvement. But for a year and 3 months worth of trying, it was precious little gain. And still hundreds of thousands of bankruptcies due to medical bills. The two Obama administrations were failures. There cannot be a repeat of the same kinds of attitudes and the same kinds of things in the Biden administration. And one of the big reasons for that kind of attitude was because in the early days of the administration, they were working hand in glove with Nancy Pelosi, who was informing them about the perspectives of the Congress and who was taking care to see that the whole Congress was well fed by the donors and had perspectives that were in general very, very centrist. Nancy Pelosi was part and parcel of that. She did everything Obama wanted her to do. She was even the one who saved the Affordable Care Act when the Affordable Care Act was on the ropes. She saved the travesty. She saved the bailout of the insurance companies, and she knew it at the time. So Nancy Pelosi was not only a failure in 2019 and 2020, she was a failure in 2009 and 2010 also. How do we know? Well, the Republicans swept into office in the fall of 2010. It was a slaughter across the country. It screwed up politics for the whole decade. That's how big a failure Nancy Pelosi was. Because when the Republicans took over all over the United States, they gerrymandered everything. And the Democrats were immediately down, if you're looking across the country, by 3 or 4 points in every election because of the way they gerrymandered stuff. That was, in large part, Nancy Pelosi's failure because she didn't run on things that would get people excited. She didn't pass anything that got people excited. Insofar as the Affordable Care Act got people excited, In the early days, it got people excited on the right wing because they all figured the Affordable Care Act was absolutely terrible and they hated it. There was no energy on the left for supporting it. Only the administration had energy to support it. It took 3 or 4 years before any enthusiasm at all was felt for the Affordable Care Act. So Pelosi failed then, as well as in the last 2 years. And what did the squad do? They rewarded failure in the Democratic Party in the House with 2 more years. They voted for the oligarchy. They handed the re-election to Nancy Pelosi. Now, I said I would explain that. Okay. The final vote was 216 to 209, with 2 righties on the Dem side voting for, one voted for Tammy Duckworth, okay, and the other voted for, I forget who the other voted for, okay, but for somebody other than Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy. So, but since they voted, it made the numbers casting a vote 427. That meant that to get the majority, you needed to have the speakership. You had to get 214 votes. Now, Nancy Pelosi got 216 votes. So she had only 2 votes to spare. That's why I say 3 squad members could have blocked her, because if they had voted for other people than Kevin McCarthy and her, then Nancy Pelosi would have ended up with 213 votes, 4 more than Kevin McCarthy, but not enough to be re-elected Speaker. Now, I admit what might have happened then is that the 2 Democrats who voted for other people and the 3 Democrats who voted present, okay, present votes don't count. They're not votes cast for a person, so they do not count. But if they, in a second ballot, had come running back to Pelosi as the only alternative that was best for them, then the squad would have needed 8 votes to block Nancy Pelosi. If all 5 of them, then there would have been 432 votes. I take that back. They would have needed 7 votes, I believe, because there was, if it had been 432 people, then Nancy Pelosi would have needed 217 to win. So, if you take away, if you add 5 votes, first, if you take away 8 squad votes from the 217, that backs down to 209. If you add 5 of the righties, that brings it up to 214. So that means the non-Pelosi votes at that point would total 214. No, so even then, only 3 squad votes would have been needed in order to block her, even if that had happened. But there is a scenario in which at least 7 of the squad votes would have been needed. So some of the squad who had voted for her in other scenarios would have had to come over. That, okay, is certainly true. Okay, but of course, in a just world, all 8 of the squad would have said, we cannot vote for her. We cannot reward this kind, okay, of failure. As Marianne said, okay, as Marianne Williamson said, when does the fight against the corporates begin? It had to begin with the most important vote that they would take over the next 2 years in Congress. The vote to determine who would lead the House, and the vote to determine whether the House would be democratized by passing new rules. Not just the no pay go rule, not just the no pay go rule, but also another rule to provide automatic triggers for floor votes if people get a certain amount of votes co-sponsoring bills they introduce in Congress. I've suggested, okay, the live streams, perhaps 10 co-sponsors. Okay, I now feel probably 20 co-sponsors, okay, is more reasonable. That would still provide for a lot of floor votes and many, many things, and would democratize the Congress, because it would make the committee chairs much less powerful and the speaker much less powerful. And that's what we need in the United States. We need the representatives that we elect, that carry our trust and our concerns, to have influence in Congress, and not to have that influence diluted and lost and aggregated by an oligarchy that runs the goddamn House, so that it's no longer the people's house, but the oligarch's house. We cannot have that any longer. So, I wanted to say all that, and I wanted to thank you for coming, okay, and for being here. I'm not going to do my usual reading because this is not supposed to be, okay, an in-depth show, but I will go over, I'll pick out some of your comments. Jeff says, Jeffrey Denton says, didn't you know the people who don't take the dirty money are now the bad guys for some reason? Look, this is not about whether they're bad guys or good guys. I started out by pointing out what good guys they are. This is about them taking a shameful and awful decision without consulting their base. Without consulting their base. It's about their being anti-democratic in this decision-making over a very, very important issue. It's about them divorcing themselves from their base and not caring what their base thought about this particular decision. That's what it's about. It's not whether they're good guys or bad guys. It's not whether they're taking dirty money or not taking dirty money. Yes, they weren't taking any dirty money. Does that make it more meritorious for them to join with people who are taking dirty money? To subordinate themselves to someone whose whole career is based on dirty money? Does it, the fact that they're good guys, does that justify that? I don't think so. And Troy Lance says he likes the way I handle my tweets. Says I haven't checked my Twitter in days. I work tons of hours from Thursday through Sunday into Monday morning every week. Most hours I do it from Friday to Sunday morning. It takes me almost all day Monday just to recover from my work week. Hey, Rick, how are you? Yeah, Rick Maynard's here. I don't know how long he can stay. He's probably got at least 2 live streams to do tonight. Sam Hollenbeck says, good evening, you all. Hi, Sam. How are you? And Deborah says, that let's do this pick made me sick. Made me sick too, because she didn't want us to do this with her when she was making the decision to vote for Pelosi, did she? Jeff Denton says, someone had deliberately tried to shatter their movement, put it in a state of anarchy moments before in case anyone didn't notice. What's stupid is assuming the longest-serving independent can spend 40 years in politics and not know what Citizens United did to politics. He knows what CU did to politics. But he hasn't tried to do anything about it, has he? Something can be done about it. Something can be done about it. It's called Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution and the Exceptions Clause. Bernie contrived to pass a new campaign finance bill with the Exceptions Clause in it, dealing the Supreme Court out. And he can push for that and try to pass it. He never did. It's been 10 years and he never did. Does he know what's in Article 3, Section 2? Evelina says, but you're right, Dr. Joe. They aren't consulting their constituents. Exactly. They're not practicing bottom-up democracy. That's the problem. That's what they need to be doing. And Jeff Denton said that, and the Joint Citizens United Party wiped out a 1 million volunteer campaign in Iowa with a vote counting stopping app. Yeah, I know. Now that's come out. Just as the corruption came out about the 2016 election, now corruption is starting to come out about the 2020 election. More and more information about how Bernie was cheated. Barbara Wernick says Biden is already showing he'll fail. He's not the right person for this movement. I know. I just hope he can rise to the occasion. We'll see. We can just hope against hope that he will. Troy Fallon Land says, next Trump will be more slick and adept. We're headed towards fascism if we don't stop this train wreck. I know. I'm afraid. The problem is, we're headed towards fascism because we elected Biden, and we're headed towards fascism in part because the squad just reelected Nancy Pelosi. We needed someone as Speaker who was going to reflect the progressive perspectives in the House and who was going to push Biden left. Instead, we got someone who's not going to do any of that. That's why it's so dismaying. And yes, it's easy to feel politically homeless now. But we've been homeless for a long time. People in the Democratic Party have been calling us DFHs for a long time. Barbara says, the problem now is thousands are dying while we try to get this right. This is why the squad not standing up pisses me off. People are dead for lack of leadership. Yes, indeed they are. They had a chance to grab leadership. Just yesterday. Of course, there was the Jimmy Dore campaign. That silly campaign distracted things. It's just distracted. Yes, we need a Medicare for All floor vote. But we needed the replacement of Nancy Pelosi and the Medicare for All vote. Much more. We needed both things and more than that. Even more than that. And Jimmy and his media presence derailed the possibility of having the right thing happen. which was a movement to get a bunch of floor votes after getting rid of Nancy Pelosi. Troy says, back in 2008, I warned of the coming Brazilification of the USA, and by Brazilification, I mean to say that we will have a 1% super wealthy, and the rest of us will be living in favelas. Yes, I agree, Troy. That's the way it's happening right now. As was said, okay, by Marianne Williamson in the longer clip surrounding the one, Kate, that I played for you, she talks about the United States becoming a feudal system. And we can see that. We can even see what is feudal about it. If you're in one of the large corporations run by the feudal lords, and you work for them, you are protected with good safety net packages. You are protected with job security, perhaps for many, many years. You are protected with a fairly decent salary that you and your family can live on. You can maybe still afford a house and not even have crippling debt. But if you make moves the oligarchs don't like, if you make moves the feudal lords don't like, you lose the protection of the feudal lord. And you're out in the cold by yourself. And there's no safety net for you because the government safety net has been taken away. If you're going to be respectable in our society these days, you need the protection of one feudal lord or another, one large corporation or another, to see how feudal it is. Some people go to work for the Koch brothers. They might not even stay in the same corporation. They'll move from corporation to corporation in the Koch empire. Their feudal lord is one of the Kochs. As long as they serve that particular feudal lord, they're good for life. If they serve Donald Trump for a long time and they're obsequious enough, they might be able to be there for a long period of time and do very well, but step out of line the least little bit, and you got a problem. Yep, dirty effing hippie, that's right. Lana says, I feel politically homeless as well, sad. Kevin says, speak all the truth, Joe. Kay says, laugh out loud, that would be me, Troy. Kay says, hence the Ohio Medicaid rule about not more than $2,000 in your bank act. Troy says, yes, they better be obsequious enough if they serve little Lord Fauntleroy Trump. Laugh out loud. Okay, folks, so that's it for tonight. This was not supposed to be an in-depth show. So it's not going on for hours and hours. But I did want to give you that reaction and how I felt about it, okay, and Mary Ann's too. I think she stated it very, very well. But the way I look at it, I think also gives value added. So thank you for coming. And as Dolores Pierce says, thank you and good night all. Troy says, laugh out loud. Cool, Joe. Thanks for all that you do. Thank Troy. Thank you, Troy. Good night.